Has the hype finally caught up to Arch Manning? Because after this weekend's game against Florida, a lot of people are starting to think so. The same fans who once called him college football's future are now asking a very different question. Was Arch ever really that guy to begin with? It's hard to believe how quickly things have shifted. Just a few months ago, every headline, every podcast, every analyst was talking about Arch like he was already on his way to the NFL. The next Manning, Heisman frontrunner, top draft pick. Those were the words attached to a player who hadn't even thrown a single meaningful snap yet. It wasn't just hype, it was expectation. The kind that builds pressure no 20-year-old quarterback should have to carry. Then came the swamp. Florida versus Texas. One of those games that separate the real from the rumored. And under those bright lights, the story changed. 2 costly interceptions, shaky. Then came the swamp. Florida versus Texas. One of those games that separate the real from the rumored. Decision-making and a body language that screamed frustration. By halftime, fans who'd been shouting his name were shaking their heads. By the fourth quarter, the internet had already decided the Arch Manning experiment might be falling apart. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a bad game. It was a reality check for Arch, for the media, and for everyone who bought into the Golden Boy narrative without question. Because when the pressure hit, the crown didn't shine the same way. And while all this was happening, another name started echoing across social media: Shedeur Sanders. The comparison wasn't subtle. Fans were saying it loud. Shedeur earns it. Arch inherits it. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about potential anymore. It was about proof. So what really went wrong in Florida? Why are fans calling Arch overhyped while praising Shedeur for handling pressure like a pro? And has the media finally created a monster it can't control? Let's break it all down. Because the truth behind this fall from grace runs deeper than a few bad passes. It was supposed to be the game. The moment Arch Manning silenced every critic, proved every headline right, and showed the world that he really was the next big thing. Instead, it became the game that changed everything. From the first drive, it was clear something was off. The Florida defense came after him hard, blitz after blitz, collapsing the pocket, forcing quick decisions, and Arch looked unsettled. Every snap seemed heavier, every throw a little more hesitant. Then came the first interception, a telegraphed pass straight into the hands of a Florida defender. The crowd erupted, the camera zoomed in, and suddenly, the chosen one looked human. By the time the second interception landed in enemy hands, the internet had already caught fire. Clips spread across Twitter in seconds. Fans who once praised his calm under pressure were now asking if the moment was too big for him. And what made it worse? This wasn't just any game. It was a high-stakes matchup in the swamp, one of the toughest places to play in college football. He finished the night with decent numbers: 14 for 25, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. But those 2 costly turnovers erased everything good. You could see the frustration in his eyes, the weight of the Manning name pressing down. And while the scoreboard told one story, the fans told another. Because to them, this wasn't about stats. It was about expectations finally colliding with reality. Before Arch Manning ever threw a pass in college, the world had already written his story for him. He wasn't just another quarterback recruit. He was a Manning, the grandson of Archie, the nephew of Peyton and Eli, football royalty by bloodline. The media couldn't resist it. Every article, every podcast, every preseason headline built the legend higher. Heisman favorite, top draft prospect, the next great Manning. And the scary part? He hadn't even played a full game yet. That kind of hype isn't normal. It's manufactured. College analysts treated him like a guaranteed superstar, not a freshman learning the ropes. Sponsors lined up, cameras followed his every move, and even before he stepped on the field, Arch Manning was more brand than athlete. The expectation wasn't to develop into greatness. It was to already be great. But that's where things started to crack. Because when you're sold as perfect, people don't just expect you to play well. They expect you to never fail. And the moment you do, the same media that built you up starts tearing you down, frame by frame, headline by headline. Arch's name carried weight long before his arm did. And while that helped him get attention, it also painted a target on his back. Every defense wants to be the one that humbles the chosen one. Every mistake becomes a headline. And as Florida proved, the spotlight that builds you up can just as easily burn you down. When the final whistle blew, the numbers told a story. But not the one Arch Manning fans wanted to see. 14 completions on 25 attempts, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 brutal interceptions. On paper, that doesn't look terrible. But football isn't just about stats. It's about timing, decision-making, and composure. And in those critical moments, when leaders rise, Arch looked uncertain. You could see it in his footwork. Rushed, nervous, almost panicked. His eyes darted too quickly through his reads, trying to force plays that weren't there. Those 2 interceptions didn't come from bad luck. They came from bad judgment. The kind of judgment that separates potential from prepared. And that's where the cracks started showing. The more people watched, the more they realized something uncomfortable. Maybe Arch wasn't ready to carry the weight of a dynasty. Maybe he wasn't ready to live up to the Manning myth. Fans who had defended him for months suddenly went quiet. Analysts who once praised his elite poise began questioning his readiness. Even his supporters admitted the hype train might have left the station too early. The truth hit hard. Arch wasn't failing because he lacked talent. He was struggling because everyone expected perfection, and perfection is impossible under that kind of pressure. Still, while the critics circled, one name kept popping up in every conversation, every thread, every sports panel: Shedeur Sanders. Because while Arch was cracking under expectation, Shedeur was thriving under pressure. While Arch Manning's reputation started to crumble under the weight of expectation, Shedeur Sanders was doing the exact opposite, thriving under it. Every week, Shedeur plays with the what? Kind of confidence that can't be taught. Calm in chaos, precise under pressure, and fearless when the spotlight is brightest. The same media that once doubted him now can't stop talking about him. And the best part? He earned every ounce of it. Unlike Arch, Shedeur wasn't handed the narrative of greatness. He built it from scratch. Coming out of Jackson State, people questioned whether he could compete at the top level. They doubted his toughness, his consistency, even his leadership. But instead of folding, he proved them wrong, again and again. His stats, his poise, and his undeniable presence on the field made one thing clear: Shedeur doesn't just play the game, he commands it. So when fans watched Arch throw his second interception in the swamp, the comparisons were instant. Shedeur wouldn't have done that. This is why Sanders is different. Social media lit up with side-by-side clips and debates that practically wrote themselves. Nothing. It's ironic. 2 quarterbacks under massive pressure, but only one seems to grow stronger from it. For Arch, pressure exposes flaws. For Shedeur, pressure reveals character. And that's why the conversation has shifted. Fans aren't just comparing skill anymore, they're comparing mentality. One quarterback is struggling to live up to his name, the other is carving his own. But the biggest twist? The media that built Arch's pedestal might now be the same one pulling it down. Here's where things start to get uncomfortable. The way the media treats Arch Manning compared to Shedeur Sanders isn't even close. When Arch struggles, headlines read, "Tough night, but bright future ahead." When Shedeur has an off game, it's overhyped, cocky, or cracking under pressure. Same situation, completely different tone. It's the classic double standard of modern sports media. One player is protected by legacy, while the other has to fight twice as hard to earn respect. Arch comes from a family that is football. His last name alone guarantees coverage, patience, and endless potential narratives. Shedeur, on the other hand, has to prove everything, every single week, while dealing with the weight of being Shedeur Sanders' son, another name that carries its own impossible expectations. But fans are starting to notice. They're tired of seeing certain players get passes just because of who they are, while others get dissected for every minor mistake. You can't preach meritocracy in sports and then hand out free credibility based on last names. Even on talk shows and social media, the bias is loud. Arch's struggles are framed as learning experiences. Shedeur's success is often credited to flash or hype. It's subtle, but powerful, and it's shaping how fans see both players. The irony? Shedeur doesn't need protection. He thrives on pressure. Meanwhile, Arch, the one who was supposed to be untouchable, is starting to look like the one who needs it most. And that raises a much bigger question. What happens when the name that once opened every door starts closing them instead? Being a Manning isn't just a last name, it's a legacy. For Arch Manning, that legacy is both his greatest gift and his biggest curse. From the moment he first picked up a football, the world expected him to be the next Peyton, the next Eli, the next chapter in a dynasty that defined an era of the NFL. It wasn't just about playing well, it was about living up to greatness. But that's the problem. When you grow up in a shadow that large, people stop seeing you as an individual. Every pass is compared to Peyton's precision. Every decision is measured against Eli's composure. There's no room to breathe, no space to just be Arch. Every good game is a glimpse of the Manning bloodline, and every bad one is a stain on the legacy. That's an impossible standard for anyone, especially a young quarterback still finding his identity. The name opens doors, recruiters call, brands invest, fans flock. But once you're inside, the expectations suffocate you. Because when you're a Manning, good isn't good enough. You have to be perfect. And lately, perfection has been slipping further away. The weight of the family name is starting to show in his confidence, in his play, in the way he reacts under pressure. You can almost see the frustration of someone trying to live up to a story that was written long before he could write his own. It's not just about football anymore. It's about identity. And Arch Manning is learning the hard way that a famous name can get you attention, but it can't win you games. The fans were the first to believe in Arch Manning, and now they're the first to turn on him. What started as admiration has slowly shifted into skepticism. And after the Florida game, skepticism turned into frustration. The comment sections, sports forums, and social media timelines said it all. People are tired of the hype without the proof. Posts began flooding in right after his second interception. He's not ready. Stop treating him like a superstar. If his last name wasn't Manning, no one would care. Harsh words, but they reflect a growing truth. Fans don't want a pre-written hero anymore. They want authenticity. They want performance. It's not that people hate Arch, it's that they feel misled. The media sold him as the next great savior of football, but every time he steps on the field, reality looks different. Fans are no longer satisfied with potential. They want results. And when the myth doesn't match the moment, they're quick to move on. That's what makes this backlash different. It's not rooted in hate. It's rooted in disappointment. People wanted to see greatness. They wanted to witness the birth of another Manning era. But instead, they're seeing flashes of doubt, inconsistency, and pressure that looks too heavy for one young quarterback to handle. Now, the same crowd that once cheered his name is asking a brutal question. Was he ever built for this? And the answer, whatever it turns out to be, could define not just Arch's career, but how fans judge every chosen one that comes after him. So now the question everyone's asking is simple. What happens next for Arch Manning? Does he bounce back and rewrite the story? Or does he become another cautionary tale of talent crushed by expectation? Because right now, he's standing at a crossroads. Every throw from here on out won't just be judged by its accuracy, but by what it represents, resilience or regression. There's still time for redemption. Arch isn't done, not by a long shot. The talent is there, the arm strength, the vision, the mechanics. But what's missing is confidence. He's playing like a quarterback who's afraid to make mistakes instead of one who's hungry to make plays. And that mindset has to change if he wants to survive at the next level. Scouts are already watching closely. They've seen flashes of greatness, but also too many moments of hesitation. Some insiders say he needs another year to mature. Others whisper that he might not be the generational player he was built to be. Either way, the clock is ticking, not on his career, but on the patience of the fans and media that once worshipped him. And maybe that's a good thing, because pressure either breaks you or builds you. If Arch can take this moment, this embarrassment, this criticism, and turn it into fuel, he could silence everyone. But if he lets it consume him, the Manning name that once opened every door might start closing them instead. The next game won't just test his skill, it'll test his identity. At the end of the day, this story isn't just about Arch Manning throwing interceptions. It's about what happens when hype meets reality. It's about a young athlete born into greatness, trying to prove that he deserves it, not because of his last name, but because of his game. And right now, that battle is far from over. Arch is learning what so many chosen ones before him have. Talent might get you attention, but resilience is what earns you respect. Every mistake he makes will be magnified, every success picked apart. That's the price of legacy. But it's also the test that forges true greatness. The question is, will he rise from this or let the weight of expectation crush him? Meanwhile, players like Shedeur Sanders remind the world that hunger still matters more than heritage. Shedeur wasn't born into media privilege. He built his own. He's proving that work ethic and mental toughness can still outshine any family name. And in that comparison lies the real lesson. Greatness can't be inherited. It has to be earned. So now, the spotlight is back on Arch. Every snap from here on out will decide what story people tell about him. The fall of a legacy or the rise of his own identity. But what do you think? Is Arch Manning just going through growing pains, or was the media hype always too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your take. And if you believe athletes should be judged by effort, not expectation, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because here, we talk about the truth behind the headlines. And this story is just beginning.